The Beatles did well as a team, produced hit songs, and had so many achievements as a team before they had split up in 1970. Every member of the Beatle clan loved music and continued with it after their split up. The popularity they garnered from being in the band helped in kick-starting their solo career. With nearly 300 million confirmed sales and nearly 600 million claimed sales, the Beatles remain the biggest selling music act as of then. Logically, their fan base would still follow each member of the band in their solo career. But was it easy for all of them to get their first hit? Who amongst them had landed a #1 hit song on either the US or UK single charts first? We'll dive right into this in detail. But before we do so, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more exclusive content on the Beatles. The Beatles, as a team, started back in the days when their style of music wasn't all that popular. They were considered the pioneers of pop music. They started the band as young guys and became popular in no distant time. They performed in different places before they finally returned to the UK in 1961. Following a run of different shows, they were spotted by Brian Epstein, who later became the band's office manager in 1962. In October of the same year, the Beatles released their first single, Love Me Do, which peaked at number 17 on the record retailer chart. They would, however, go on to release 12 studio LPs in 8 years. The impact that John Lennon, Paul McCartney, George Harrison, and Ringo Starr had on pop music was unmatched by any other musical band. Their impact is still felt today, and even their involvement in culture is still recognized. In 1963, the Beatles got to record their first LP titled Please Please Me in the UK, which became popular, peaking at #1 on the charts. They also started with their European tours. They had thousands of fans filing the streets outside venues on different occasions. Their reaction to the band was dubbed Beatlemania. In 1964, the Beatles decided to hit the USA for the first time. The Ed Sullivan Show played host to their first US television performance, which was a landmark for the band and was watched by approximately 73 million viewers in the States. They had a really large fan base. The Beatles' successful wins and growing fan base in America saw them hold the top 5 places in the Billboard Top 100, which is still a record no one has come close to this day. The Beatles' first live music concerts were held at stadiums, which added another feather to their cap. Their wins included a show at Shea Stadium to a world record crowd of 55,600 on the 15th of August, 1965. Giving live performances finally began to take its toll on the band after 4 years of constant recording, touring, and over 1,400 live appearances. They, however, had their last performance at the Candlestick Park, San Francisco, in August 1966. With no plans for further shows or live performances, the Beatles took to the studio to try something new with their music. From late 1966 to 1970, the Beatles would go on to record and release a further 6 studio LPs. They started with Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. Following the death of Brian Epstein, cracks in the group's unity began to show, and recording sessions became difficult with members occasionally quitting and returning. Despite all these, the Beatles still managed to occupy the top spot with 4 of their 6 releases. They had the release peaking at #1 in the UK and 5 reaching #1 in the US. Such unmatched energy. With the fight rumors, tension continued to become noticeable as most members had lost interest. The Beatles finally broke up in 1970. After the Beatles' breakup, their final studio LP, Let It Be, was released on the 8th of May, 1970. After the famous Beatles split, Lennon, McCartney, and Harrison quickly released solo albums, while Ringo Starr opted to focus more seriously on his acting career over music. However, in 1973, all 4 members had landed a #1 song on either the US or the UK single charts, 3 years apart, and they were already doing well as a solo act, all thanks to their involvement in the Beatles band. It's no surprise though, because more than anything, being a Beatle meant unprecedented success and global recognition. The record sales and chart positions can be quantified and measured to show how massively popular the Beatles were. Across the US and UK singles charts, the Beatles landed a total of 32 #1 hits throughout their career. Even though they were all successful as solo acts, it's still a bit difficult to believe that Ringo Starr had 2 #1 hits in the US before John Lennon had his first chart topper. It was surprising because Ringo seemed to be more focused on acting. Even when asked privately, John Lennon admitted to finding it hard to believe as well. A lot of fans assumed that John's 1971 smash international hit, Imagine, reached the top of the Billboard Hot 100, but it did not in the US. The song peaked at number 3. However, Ringo's song, Photograph, topped the charts for a whole week starting from the 24th of November, 1973, debuting at number 74 on the Billboard Hot 100. It took 7 weeks to make the climb to the top. His second number 1, Year 16, also topped the charts for 1 week. It debuted at number 75 on the 15th of December, 1973, and 6 weeks later, on the 26th of January, 1974, it topped the charts. Both Photograph and Year 16 were released as singles from the 1973 Ringo album. Another song from Ringo's best solo album, Oh My My, reached number 5. Photograph was written by Ringo Starr and George Harrison, and marked the only time that two ex-Beatles collaborated to write a song that made the charts. The song was written in 1971, while both were on vacation in the south of France. However, the first Beatle that had the number 1 solo hit was George Harrison, who took his song, My Sweet Lord, to number 1 in both the US and UK in the late months of 1970 and the early weeks of 1971. George Harrison had the honors of being both the first and the last ex-Beatle to top the charts in the US. Beginning on December 26, 1970, his song, My Sweet Lord, spent 4 consecutive weeks at number 1, making it the first number 1 song by an ex-Beatle, and this happened only 8 months after the announcement of the band's breakup. Harrison scored a number 1 hit in 1988 with I've Got My Mind Set on You, a remake of a 1962 song written and performed by Rudy Clark, reaching the top slot for 1 week on the 16th of January, 1988. It was a real coup for Harrison to break into the top charts, which were being dominated by the likes of well-known artists such as Michael Jackson, George Michael, and Whitney Houston. Even up till now, I've Got My Mind Set on You ranks as the last number 1 single by an ex-Beatle. When I've Got My Mind Set on You reached the top of the charts, it gave Harrison a unique place in the history of the Billboard Hot 100 as the artist or group with the longest span of number 1 hits. The song, I Want to Hold Your Hand, released in February 1964, gave him 23 years and 11 months. However, the distinction was short-lived, as 10 months later, in November 1988, the Beach Boys reached number 1 with their song, Kokomo, giving them more than 24 years. Harrison had seen a number of songs rejected by his bandmates during the final years of the Beatles, so to be the first member to land a song on the top of the charts must have been a major win for him. It must also have given him that special moment of satisfaction. Another Beatle to reach the peak point was Paul McCartney, who had always had amazing potential. His song, Maybe I'm Amazed, as an album track on his debut solo LP, got him the number 1 spot. Despite the song's sprawling nature, the track topped the Billboard Hot 100 in September 1971. Still, McCartney wouldn't have a true blues solo number 1 until 1980, when Coming Up became the first song credited solely to McCartney to reach number 1. Paul, Lennon, and Ringo all had a taste of their song being on the number 1 spot at some point in time, but the youngest Beatle sure beat them to it. That's all for today's video, guys, but before we end, did you ever envision the Beatles splitting up? Who do you think would have been the first to have a number 1 solo hit? Who was the most unlikely to have a solo career in the Beatles? Let us know what you think in the comment section below. And if you haven't by now, ensure you subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any new updates about the Beatles.